Right, the event has started and it is recording. All right, my name is Luke Thornton. Welcome to Seniors Council Douglas County for August. I am your WebEx technical host today. So if you have any questions for our presenters or any technical questions, you can send them to me via chat. There's a chat button down at the bottom right. Make sure you select in the to column to set it to host. I am the host. During the presentation, if you have questions, you can send them to me and I will present them to our presenter directly. And if you have one that you wish to articulate, please use the hand raising feature and I'll be able to call on you at the end of the presentation. Without any further ado, I will hand this over to Gretchen Lopez. Gretchen, you are muted.
There we go. Oh, so sorry. Hello all, and welcome to our Seniors Council meeting for the month of August. Hard to believe that summer is coming to a close soon and that school starts for some of the children next week, but time does fly. I'd like to acknowledge our technical expert, Luke, whom you've just met, and thank the county and our county commissioners in providing the technical support we need to bring this meeting to you today. We're extremely appreciative. So for a few announcements, last month I announced the launch of our poetry contest promotional campaign. And I think we've got a slide to show you about our Every Age Counts amateur poetry contest. This poetry contest will raise awareness of ageism, that is discrimination based solely on how many birthdays we've celebrated. Our goal is to effect a change in how people think, speak, and act about aging here in Douglas County. And as you can see on the slide, the contest officially started a few days ago on August 1st, and we'll be accepting entries through September 15th. Since this contest is specifically designed for a person who has no or little experience writing poetry, we created an information packet with contest details, sample poems, and helpful tips on how to begin writing your own poem. All poems will focus on the positive aspects of aging and can be written in either English or Spanish. If you live in Douglas County, you're eligible to participate regardless of your age. And we're hoping you will consider joining us in this one-of-a-kind event. There will be prizes and gift bags at an awards ceremony scheduled for November 6th. Now, I can't officially compete in the contest, but I took my own advice and while working on this project, tried my hand at a few poems. Here's one I wrote about my friend Marie, who lives at Cayley Ridge Assisted Living in Englewood. It goes like this. Marie's my friend. She's 101. She's full of life and lots of fun. She's sharp as a tack and she'll sass you back. Marie's my friend. She's 101. Now, I'm sure you either know or have known a person like Marie, who's a great example of living life to the fullest and who could be the subject of your poem. So please help us make this contest a success by giving it a try. You just might be one of our many winners. Now for a reason to get out of the house. Next Thursday, August 12th, Thrive Therapy and Legacy Village Castle Pines are hosting a community health fair from 9 to 11:30 in the morning. Valuable information on a wide variety of service providers will be available at this beautiful facility just up the road from us here. So think about coming and stop by our table for a visit. We'd love to see you. Up next is Tiffany Curtin, our education chair, with information on upcoming presentations and an introduction to our speaker today, Jay Berger. Tiffany?
Thank you, Gretchen, and very exciting to get started on this poetry contest that we have launched. So we're looking forward to many submissions from you all and your families. So as the education chair, I want to announce the remaining presentations in this education series for the rest of the year. So on September 2nd, we will be hearing from Molly Woodhill of Woodhull Wellness, and she will be sharing information about the science of and the importance of and how to get started with meditation. And on October 7th, we're getting started. We'll be starting to think about our Medicare options. So we'll be hearing from Dennis Del Pizzo again to talk about your Medicare options for 2022. And on November 4th, we'll be hearing from Jody Waterhouse. She's with the Anschutz Center for Learning, and she will be sharing some information about the 2022 programming, educational programming with Anschutz. And finally, on December 2nd, we'll have a presentation from Nimble Science about their app for preventing falls and staying well in that case. So that will conclude our 2021 series. I can't believe this year has gone by so fast. All right, and now I would like to introduce our presenter for today. Her name is Berger, and she is the co-founder of Virtual Kare. She is a practicing physical therapist as well. And she is here to talk to you about some tips for utilizing, engaging with technology and tools such as that. She also is certified in dementia and fall prevention as a practitioner in those areas as well. So at this point, I would like to pass the mic on and the camera on to Jay Berger. Thank you for being with us today, Jay.
Okay. Give me 1 second to find it. All right, so I can't get my video to come back on, but that's not really important. Here we are. I don't see where to do that because I minimized it. So we're not going to worry about that right now. Anyway, I wanted to talk today about home fit, which is a term that AARP uses for aging in place. And what aging in place means is most people would prefer to stay at their own home for as long as possible, if not throughout their lifespan. And there comes a time in a lot of people's lives, it's sometimes not even an age-related thing, where you can't access your house for one reason or another. Maybe you've broken a foot, or you've sprained an ankle, or for whatever reason, you now need a little bit more accessibility. And a lot of us live in homes that weren't set up immediately for accessibility. So this is going to go through room by room, first with an overview of ways in which you can make simple modifications. Many of them are very inexpensive to basically modify your home. So the definition is the ability to live in one's own home safely, independently, and comfortably, regardless of age, income, or ability level. And the key parts of this is safely, independently, and comfortably. And the term safely means that your risk of fall is low, that you're cognitively able to take care of yourself, you know how to address any emergencies and problems, and that you're comfortable. So AARP has a home fit guide, and it's actually a really nice pamphlet. It's free if you go on their website, and they have a nice pictorial to a lot of this. I've seen probably upwards and onwards to over 100 versions of this. I think they did a really nice time. So if you feel you would like something a little bit more pictorial, go ahead and go onto the AARP site, and there's a free download to the Home Fit Guide. So just some suggestions and practical solutions. Again, regardless of your age or ability physically, we're going to go through a step-by-step analysis of your home and try to look at some of the potential hazards and how we're going to minimize them. A lot of these are going to be do it yourself. There'll be a couple that possibly need some professional modifications, and this is just more of the higher end things that you may or may not want to do. We're going to talk about some equipment options, and I'm going to be fairly generic, but feel free to ask more specifics. And we're going to go room by room and give some suggestions, because each room has its own issues, hazards, and accessibility concerns. So in the checklist is a total home review. And then again, it goes through each room just like we're going to do today. And it gives you some modifications and some things that you would want to consider. But truly, if you want an individualized approach, if you were to get a physical therapy or occupational therapy home assessment, it's typically covered by Medicare. And we will basically, we can do this even virtually. It's just taking the camera around and visually showing you what we see and making some specific recommendations for you. So truly, to make this individualized, that would be the best way if you have super significant concerns or something more independent to yourself and your own particular needs. We want to talk about what options are available and where it's available, and when you want to do it yourself and when you really want to hire a professional. So just to start, the accessibility to your house is key. So if you can't get in and out, then you aren't safe and independent. A lot of people put up auto sensor lighting so that you don't have to have it go to a switch to turn it on. And I recommend that because we don't know what the lighting situations are. But one of the highest risks to fall comes from low vision. And low vision can also mean that you're not seeing as well. And if you're not seeing clearly the depth and what's on around you and all the nuances of the exterior environment, you can very easily trip and get a little bit disoriented. And it happens to many of us. It's somewhat age dependent, but it is not completely age dependent. I would say the number one reason why people fall is typically medication related and visual related, just not having the balance to acclimate and adjust. So you want the debris and clutter to be cleared from all the pathways, making sure the pathway is firm, that there's no breakage in the concrete or pieces that are up above the main platform of the surface, that the shrubs are trimmed so you don't have to go around. If you're in a communal environment, you may want to ask them if they could put on auto sensors if they don't have it. And you can certainly make the request that they do this. You want your address to be clearly visible from the street. And I can't emphasize this enough, because when the paramedics need to come, the time that they spend to find your house is critical. So if it's not completely visible from street distance and well lit, there's a good possibility they may circle around quite a bit till they find it. And from doing home care quite a bit, the GPS systems don't always locate the house correctly. So we still rely on that street number or the house number or apartment number or whatever. So if it's in an apartment and it's faded, make sure it's marked well. And give the most specific instructions as you can. You also need to consider different times of the year. You have to plan for snow removal, making sure that you don't have ice. Wet leaves are also a way that you can slip and fall. And then just the simple week-to-week things, putting out the trash, taking out the recycling, and bringing them back in. You need to be able to do that, or you need to have a setup that somebody can do it for you. The last is the mailbox. A lot of people live in a place where they actually have to cross the street to the mailbox around here. I don't know your setup, but if you live somewhere that you have to access the mailbox from a distance of your front door, and that could even be that you live in a communal situation where you have all the mailboxes in one local area, that you may have to take the elevator down, or you might have to take a distance walk to get there. Those are just things to consider. The last thing I'd consider, and this is something that's not necessarily related to home, but related to your ability, is can you get the key in the lock? I have a lot of people, we spend a lot of time helping them learn how to get the key into the lock and turning it to access the mailbox. And it seems somewhat simple, but if you have arthritis, poor vision, you've got tremors, you've got some issues, this can become a problem. When you get into the entrance, one of the things that I think are really nice are the ways that you can get in without a key. So you can use a code that you can just verbally give to somebody to allow them access into your house, either with a lockbox that has a key like they do when you do selling a house, or of course you could just have the code and just have a second key to somebody. The problem with the second key is if that person's not available, you still need another access into the house. And if you're not able to access the front door to open it, they're going to push down the door or axe it down to get in. So much easier is to have a means that you can get them in with a code if possible. And this also relates to in communities where there's a fob or something that's a sensor. There has to be a way for the paramedics to get in. In a lot of places, they have that access, but check with your fire department and police department and see if they have it. Just call them and say, I live in this community. Do you have access in, regardless of if I give you access? If you look to the right, these are lever style door handles. They're the easiest to manipulate. You don't have to grip them, and you can easily just push down or pull up to access in. And both outside and inside the home, they're probably the easiest preferred method to use for doors. When you get to the front of the door, there is a place called the door jamb. And this is regardless of where you live. There's a space between the door and the inside. And in that space is an area of probably maybe 5 inches or so where you could place a large handle, just that you get from a local local hardware store or Home Depot or Lowe's, that you can use, and you could just put that in at the door jamb to help give you just one more handhold to get into the house. Another is, are your windows blocked? And do you have a personal emergency alert system? And we'll get into this a little bit later, but there's emergency alert systems that work both in the house and in the community. And there's some that work off of a landline phone, and there's some that can work off of a wireless. So these are things that you want to check. A lot of people are community dwellers, meaning that you're going out into the community. So you want emergency systems set up for you even outside of the house. You also want to have a second exit. And this would be for anybody. If you have a fire, you need to have another access point or entry point or exit point somehow to get in or out of the house. And preferably you want it to be with no steps. If you live in an apartment with an elevator, you need to be able to use the stairs to get down because the elevators do not work in an emergency. And there also has to be a way that once you get down, you can still exit the facility or the house. We'll talk a little bit more about ramps, but the ADA came out with standards for ramps, and that's so that they don't go up and ascend or descend on too severe of an angle, to make it easy to access from any type of device, including walking. And there is a commercial grade that they should be of, for every foot, for every inch, there's 12 inch of a height. But in terms of other people's situations, there's a lot of people that do things that aren't to grade. So make sure that if you have a ramp, it has railings on the side and it has traction on it, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But in general, you can access with whatever means that you need. I really like that now that they have these visuals that you can see who's outside the door. I don't have the high tech, but I know that people have them, that they could even see them on their phone when they're not home. And one of the things that you want to feel is safe in your own house. You don't want to go to the front door and need to open it, or you don't have access to the peephole, it's too high. So having this and having a visual and having somebody be able to announce their presence prior to you opening that door is a really high level of safety and a lot of security that makes people feel very comfortable. Not expensive either anymore. Again, with the ramp, you want to have hopefully rails on both sides and to grade. You want all the surfaces, including the ramp, to be non-skid, meaning that if it's wet, you won't slide, firm and as smooth as possible. All doors, inside and out, you would like them to be at least 36 inches wide, that you can swing away the door and get through it. And this is designed so that you can get in even with a wheelchair, or you can get in with a walker and a bulky coat and whatever, with a lot of leeway. The newer homes are 36 inches wide. They're all to code. But if you live in a home like mine that was built before code, they could be anything. So check out and make sure that your doorways and entrances into each room are wide enough that you can get in with a device. Now that may be a walker, it may be a wheelchair, but should you need to use one of those devices and you can't get in, then you're now limited to not being able to use that room, whether it be the bedroom, the bathroom, or whatever. And preferably so that you can walk in face forward instead of step side. Thresholds are the area which are the transitions, particularly in the front door. There tends to be a little bit of a raised area, and you are going to want to step over that. So if it's very bulky and very ornate, you may want to modify that so that you don't have to take as large of a step to get over. Sometimes there's a step up and then a step in, and so making sure that you can access it. This is where that handle on the area between the front door and the interior are nice to have, because then now you have a grab bar to give you a little bit of assistance. I always say it's nice to have a bench or a chair that you can put items at so you can sit them down and rest them, or yourself. So if you have a condition where you get out of breath or winded, or you find that your heart's racing a little bit, or even just general fatigue carrying things around, having that just to sit and rest and not feel like you have to rush to get in. Again, another way people fall. Making sure that your door has an easy to use lock, Nice to have secondary backups like a latch chain or a second lock. And then again, a peephole or a view that you can see out so that you don't have to open the door to make sure you're verifying that that person is who they're supposed to be. This would be a general application throughout the house, would be, again, paths free of clutter, debris, pets, and toys. Now, a lot of us may not have children, but we grow small children, but we have grandchildren, or we have dogs or cats, and very easily they pull things out and they go into our pathway, and it seemingly seems like no problem. I'm gonna step over it, no problem. Then you add a little bit of distraction or preoccupation with something else, and just that alone can make you trip. And when I talk about these things, I'm trying to emphasize this isn't just because you're older. This happens to all of us. But when we're 20, we fall, we spring right back. When we're a little bit older, it hurts a little bit more, and sometimes things we don't recover as easily. So just keeping things as safe as possible is good. And again, shrubs, smooth paths, anywhere that you're going to go from point A to point B. And that would also include furniture. All phones, and this would be landline phones or cellular phones, need to be accessible. So if you are to fall or you are to get in a situation where you need help, you need to be able to access somebody else. You also need to be able to turn on and turn off lights. You want to turn them on and have your light on before you enter. So it needs to also be reachable. It needs to be functional and working, and it needs to be in every room. And the last part of that is it's bright enough that you can clearly see your path. Again, we talked about auto sensors. There's so many different auto sensors now. They go from even just being on the floor surface so that they're not broadcasting that you're coming in from the bathroom to the bedroom, or there's just lighting throughout. And again, technology has gotten where a lot of these things are incredibly cheap. Any cords, you want to have them taped down if they're exposed. If they're under a carpet, I would still tape them down, just so that, again, you don't trip on them. Working fire extinguishers. You can call your local fire department or take the extinguisher to them to see if it's appropriate, but it should be for a home, ABC. And that's for fire extinguisher and a smoke alarm. All these things you want to bring to your local fire department. If you're not comfortably sure that they're adequate, you want to have one on every level. You want to have a fire extinguisher not only on every level, but on the level of the kitchen. You want it right in the kitchen. A carbon monoxide detector on all levels, and you want it to be audible enough that you can hear it. So if you're like my husband, who doesn't hear certain pitches, I'm the one who's pointing out where the batteries die because it's driving me crazy, but he doesn't hear it. So it's not working when the battery's gone. Also, in general, there are lots of ways to secure your environment. Therapists will tell you, number one, throw rugs. If anything will make you trip, it'll be a throw rug. And although it seems like it's nice to have, unless it's absolutely necessary, you are much better getting a wall-to-wall carpet or having an extremely large rug and taping down the edges, even if it seems secure, because once you start to use a device or you drag your feet, you get it caught and it trips you. Make sure that your flooring's secure. If you have tiles or you have wood or any synthetic, that they're secure down, and or remove them and replace them. Again, we talked about doorways. In the newer homes, everything is to code. If you live in an older home, that's not necessarily so. And it may be that it's an easy fix that you can widen it, and it may not. It just depends on the situation and what's going to take to cut out the door frame and extend it. Also in hallways, there are people who live in homes that the hallway is narrow. Again, when you go from point A to point B and you're taking more than yourself, maybe you're taking a walker or you have to go in a wheelchair, and even if this is a temporary situation, you need to be able to access those areas that are most critical: your kitchen, your bathroom, your bedroom, and the exit. High contrast is really a good thing to have. And by high contrast, I mean like this black on white, where there's a significant difference between. This helps with anybody who has depth perception issues, meaning that you can't necessarily judge the distance quite as well. So you may step out a little too far, you may not step far enough, you may misjudge the height of the step. It also helps you with basically figuring out where your body is in space. So if you're having any issues, putting things into high contrast, and this could be as simple as just putting a piece of yellow duct tape over something, and I'll show you in some of the stairways, but this will also help give you a better contrast. Making sure any railings and grab bars you have are secure, so you can really hang on them if you need to and wiggle them, and they're not going to juggle on you. Also with this, a lot of people live in homes where the railing is hard to hold on to because it's very ornate, or it is basically, it goes up a part of the way but not the rest of the way. And if there's a way to extend that railing up to the very top of the steps or the bottom of the steps, that would be recommended. And it can be done very simply with just a simple railing that you could get from one of the home repair stores and have it secured in for you with into the can't think of the area I'm thinking of, but go into the places where you know it's secure in there. And I don't know why my mind is missing right now. I'll think of it later, but into the studs of somewhere that you know that it's set up secure. It's nice to have flashlights and phones in each room. A lot of us have cell phones, which is fine, but make sure that they're well charged and that if you were to fall, they're going to remain on you and you can access them. My mom fell when she was younger, tripping over the dog leash, and she fell outside and tripped and her cell phone went flying. And although she lived in an area where people could drive by and see her, nobody saw her for several hours and she was in shock. Rocker switches are the switches. They look like they're kind of like an inverted pyramid on either side. They're nice to have because you can just hit them and they go on. And they're nice to have. Basically, they say at about 3 to 4 feet up so that you can access them from level surface. Outlets you want up a little bit from the floor, again, so that you don't have to go down really low to plug something in. This is basic first aid. Basic self-care is you should always have, in any situation, at least 3 days of shelf-stable food, water, and batteries. If you have oxygen, in addition to that, you want to make sure that you have one of those large tanks that will allow you, no matter whether you have electricity or not, to be set up for oxygen flow until somebody can come. If you don't, you should have a backup supply that will allow you that ability to maintain oxygenation. And that's something I would check with the company that's supplying that to you. So we get into the kitchen. This is one of those areas that has all these things that make it difficult to access when you can't stand up as high and get up the ladder, or you can't reach down as low without feeling a little unsafe. So one thing I like is if you just have a table or a stool or somewhere that you can sit and prep your food. So if you're feeling uncomfortable, tired, whatever, there's a place for you to sit and do part of your meal prep without feeling like you have to stand through the whole event. It may even just be taking things out of the refrigerator and putting them there, and then taking them from there to the next point. The other thing is a stool is nice because a stool will allow you to sit and rest somewhat, at least, so you're not fully standing. And that also is a means to kind of take a little bit of a rest, whether you're sitting in front of the stove or you're sitting in front of the oven, but somewhere that you can see but still rest. Again, you'll hear over and over again, floor mats. If at all possible, remove them or make sure they're very securely down with double stick tape. And certainly any spills, you want to make sure that they're wiped up well so that they're dry surface. If at all possible, just for energy conservation, it's always best to keep the things that you need the most at waist height, meaning that you don't have to go up a ladder or reach high to get something, or even go down low and find something. A lot more energy involved to do that. And also too, a lot easier to get things. So in an event that you need easy access, you may even want to put some dishes in the center, and maybe the pots and pans that you use the most closest to waist height access, and then the rest that you don't use as much further away. Step stools, if you're going to use one, make sure that your foot can go fully on the step, and make sure that it has a handle that you can hold on to. Chairs are not recommended. Ones that you don't have a good, sturdy, secure footing are going to make you more apt to not only feel uncomfortable, but higher risk to fall. Application of the appliances, most of the controls nowadays are in front. They typically are a turn or push electronic, fairly easy to read. Some of them have a safety shutoff, some don't. So if you're feeling that you're going to have to reach over to turn off the appliance, especially the stove, you may want to see if that can be amended some and set that you can turn it off from the front. If you can't read it, there are lots of ways to make it easier to read, and or make it so that you can know what the temperature is. And the last part is there are lots of people that have short-term memory problems, but they're still safe to live at home, or they're easily preoccupied. Maybe you even still have older adult teens in the home that cook for themselves. Having a safety shutoff is great, because as soon as you leave and that oven's still on, you needed to have shut off at some point for safety. There are lots of ways that these devices turn on, turn off, sensor, and pull in and out with like the cabinets or the drawers or even the oven. So you want to just make sure that you don't have to grip hard and you don't have to pull or push hard to access that piece of equipment, to read off of that equipment and identify what is turned on, where it's turned on, and how. And typically handles are going to be easier than knobs for appliances or cabinets because there's less gripping involved. So you can basically just hook your fingers and typically pull them out. Again, an extinguisher is paramount, typically under the sink, but definitely easy to reach. Definitely already you've gone through, you know how to use it. And again, this is not necessarily age related. My daughter was in her apartment and she burned something on the stove, and very quickly it developed into a fire. And luckily she had a fire extinguisher and knew how to use it and was able to extinguish it in time, but it was very quickly coming out of control. If you have somebody, again, who you have concerns of burning, maybe their sensation isn't as good. This also relates to the bathroom. But if you can't perceive the temperature for whatever reason, your sensation's not as good, your circulation's not as good, or you're just not as cautious for some whatever reason, you can set the temperature so that it cannot elevate above a certain temperature, so that you can keep somebody from burning. In the bedroom, again, an area that's frequently used, one of the things I see often is the bedding or the comforter or whatever the blanket is often hanging on the floor. And I have seen several people trip over them, particularly when they're not having good lighting. So if you can tuck them in underneath the mattress, or at least keep them above the height of the floor so that you can't catch your toe, that would be appropriate. When you sit on the side of the bed, you should be able to get your feet on the ground. A lot of these newer beds are really high, and you find yourself that you can't get your feet on the ground. And if you're not completely stable, completely awake, completely with it, and you lean forward, you could easily lose your balance and fall. So whenever possible, either get the bed down so that your feet can touch the ground, or get a large stepping stool that's very firm that you can step on, that you can have your feet on before you step down. But definitely preferred would be to have the bed at the level that you can do that. That may be sometimes taking out a part of the mattress that you don't need. It may be just lowering the legs of the bed. Some people are not going to be able to do this. So something to keep in mind is you can also go online and get a very wide, stable stepping stool that's long and has a handle on it to help you get off. The drawers that you go into, the closets, the hanging things, they all have to be accessible, and they have to be available to you whether you're sitting or standing. If you are in a position where you have a lot of clothes or you have a lot of items, again, going back to that waist level or easy height level that you can grab right in front of you is always preferred. There are even rod extenders that you can drop down the rod so that there's a lower height that you can reach. And again, put the things that you need the most in there. If you are in a closet, you can even get the battery operated or sensor lights that will light up the closet for you. And again, pulls are always going to be easier than knobs. This is repetitious, but can't be emphasized enough. Accessibility to communicate, a telephone that you can get to, and accessibility to get from point A to point B. So in bed, you should have light access to get to the bathroom. From the front of the bedroom door, you should be able to get into the bedroom. And they should both be able to occur from the point of access, not from when you walk through and then turn the light on. Paths, again, you want them very clear. You want to have them wide enough so that you can get in there. So if you have a walker, you can take that walker all the way to where you're going to sit down on that bed and back up again. A lot of people have problems with urgency or incontinence. And one of the things that happens is tending to rush to get to the bathroom in time. One of the ways to get around this would be to put a bedside commode, which is the BSN, by the side of your bed, so you have something there at nighttime if you need it. A urinal, there are urinals now for women that you could find on Amazon. Takes a little bit getting used to, but they actually work really well, that you wouldn't even have to get out of bed. And then there are lots of ways that you can train your bladder. A lot of people think that if you're incontinent, that's it, you're incontinent. And to be honest with you, there are so many tricks to teach you how to train your bladder, which is a muscle, just like your biceps, to work better and maintain that level of fluid before you get to the bathroom and secure it. And tricks to keep you from, even if you don't have that from some physical obstruction or some laxity of the muscles, there's still ways that you can actually train your pelvic floor to perform at a much higher function than people think. Most people write it off as soon as they have it, like that's just a part of aging. Yeah, I've had kids. I have prostate problems. That's not necessarily the case. Again, auto lighting is nice to have. We talked about the kitchen. I don't know why it's coming up again. In the family room and the living room, you want to make sure that the floor plan is such that you can, again, easily maneuver around all of the objects in that room, be it the table, the sofa, the counter, whatever. So you want clear, wide walkways when at all possible. Again, throw rugs, double stick tape if they need to be there. Even if they feel that they're secure and you have a rubber backing, you want to make sure that if you hit the edge, you don't take it with you. Outlets and light switches nearby and reachable, and making sure that those cords are secure. When you have armchairs, you have something to push with, but a lot of people still have trouble getting up, especially if you're in a sofa and you're not at the end. If you keep your hips a little bit higher than your knees in height when you're sitting, it will be easier to get up. And that may be just as simple as putting a pillow down so that you're a little bit higher. If you have one of those chairs that kind of automatically bring you up, they're great. But my, I guess my sticking point is people tend to use them instead of their muscles. And there's a saying that's true: if you don't use it, you lose it. So only bring it up as far as you absolutely need and let your legs muscles do the rest. Curtains and furniture away from portable heaters and high enough that your foot won't catch them in the curtains. If you have oxygen, it should be stored properly. It needs to be well ventilated, and we can go into this further if somebody needs. And your transitions, there are a lot of people that have one step between floors, like from kitchen to living room. Some people have just a little bit of a higher threshold. You can usually switch out those thresholds for something a lot flatter very cheaply, and or put a rail there or a handle there. This is an example with the tape that you can see. You can make this high visibility so that you can more clearly see depth perception. With well-lit lights, still people sometimes have problems. So taping those, just even with some electrical tape that's yellow, or nowadays they make duct tape in every color. There's lots of ways to go about doing it, but that's one way to do it. And switches at the top and the bottom of the stairs. I like to have a chair at the top so that you can sit and rest. A lot of people tend to get up there and then they get winded and then they're rushing to the bedroom or wherever they need to sit. And again, that rushing when you're tired tends to make you higher risk to fall in probably the most dangerous place in the house. Uncluttered, this isn't a place to put things on the side and decorate. And non-slip steps. Some people have carpet. Again, if it's not firm, I would remove it and double stick tape it. High contrast we talked about. Steps are regulated nowadays, but they weren't regulated before. So make sure that they're not too steep and wide enough that you can easily get up them and get your full foot on that step. And then again, the railing, you want it to go the entire length of the house. You want it to be the proper height. You want it to be very secure. And you also want to make sure that it is not going to be difficult to grip. Some people have these big wide ones that they really can't grip. Stair glide is that electric chair that goes up and down. It's an expensive option. There are some other options available, but best of all would be if you didn't need to use the stairs. And if you need to use the stairs, the cheapest of the electronic options is that it's a straight shot. For many of us, that's still prohibitive in cost. Bathroom, second, if not the first place, I should say, that people fall. High risk to fall, high risk to hit your head or hit your hip or something that is not very forgiving. So making sure that, again, that you can keep the shower seat, the toilet, and the tub seat, or whatever you're using to sit in, high enough that you can easily get up from it. You can also use grab bars, even if you live in a rental house. This one, the black one, is a tension rod that actually sits very firmly between the ceiling and the floor and can be used. And some of them, like this handle, will rotate around for you to use it in multiple points. All your toiletries and your faucet handles need to be very reachable, even if you're sitting. If you need a shower head and you can't adjust it or you're sitting down low, you can usually take the shower head off and or add a handheld adjustment so that it can come to be at your level and you can manipulate the water the way that you want it. Again, if you're going to use a mat, make sure it's non-skid, make sure the floor is dry after you use it, and grab bars whenever possible, especially getting in and out of the tub, are nice to have. There's some standard ways to position them, and we can talk about them if somebody wants. But again, if you have a home evaluation, somebody will identify that specifically for you or whoever this is for, where to put it and what would be appropriate. We talked about making sure spills and leaks are waked up. And then making sure you know hot from cold, and that any pipes that you have accessibility to with your legs or arms are wrapped to protect you. And again, you can set the water temperature so that at least it doesn't go up above a certain temperature. And again, lever handles, not knobs, and rails, if possible. So other safety issues we talked about: first, having an exit plan. Having an emergency plan that if the first exit isn't available to you, you have a second exit option. If you live with an elevator, how are you going to get down if you need to get down and the elevator is not working? Simply because it's not working or because it's been turned off. Life alert, really nice to have, even if you're not older. I had a woman who was in her early 40s who was a diabetic, who lived alone. She was divorced. She went into her home. She was in the bathroom. She slipped and fell, and she laid there for 8 hours in a diabetic coma because she didn't have a means to communicate to anybody that she was stuck there. So somebody finally figured out the next day she wasn't where she was supposed to be, and luckily they were able to get into her apartment. But had that not happened, she would have died. Oxygen should be stored safely again, but there should be signs up that people aren't using fire of any sort around it. Rescue stickers for your pets, or to let people know where you are in the case of an emergency and how many people. Keeping your cell phones charged And it's good to have shortcut codes, meaning that 1 means the most important person that you need to call, 2 is this, 3 is that, whatever you want, that you have a really quick 1 number access to the person that you need or the service that you need. Emergency numbers, any type of means that you want to be sustained differently, that you don't want life support, that you don't want CPR, they all need to be posted very clearly on the refrigerator and updated regularly. Health professionals need to go by whatever they know. So if they don't know from a visual, written, signed thing that you are no CPR, we perform CPR by law. If you have posted emergency numbers and you can't tell us the number, we can still get the number from there. And that would also include any equipment that you have. So if your oxygen goes out, you don't want to be spending 30 minutes trying to find the possible sticker that's on that machine. You want to know who to call quickly. I always tell people, when you move somewhere, call the fire department and the utility companies if you depend on electricity for any reason, or you depend on something that may not last and sustain forever. So calling the fire department, not calling 911, but calling the fire department, calling the electric company, letting them know that you're on a certain piece of equipment, letting them know that you're high risk and you have a difficulty getting down that apartment stairs, or you can't access them, that you're number 1 in priority, and making them aware that you're there is very important. And they appreciate it, and they are very familiar with this. Some communities around here use what they call a daily buddy system. There's all sorts of ways to do that. One could be that you call somebody every day. If you have daughters, we tend to do that anyway. But the other is that you could even just put a sign up, and if the sign didn't change, the neighbor that walks by there or whatever would then know, hey, check and make sure they didn't just forget. And again, medication safety. A lot of us have grandchildren, or we have difficulty with our vision, or even just opening a bottle. There are top on off bottle tops that you can get, that you can have a pharmacy exchange so that they're easier, having them well marked, having them stored properly, and having them accessible and filled appropriately. So not waiting till the last pill for your cardiac med to get the next group. And general considerations, we've talked about the shrubs and the trees, bringing the outdoor furniture in that's not secured for high winds, setting the refrigerator to the coldest setting, keeping your valuables in a waterproof container, highest level of the home, filling your gas tank. Come back and make sure you have enough gas that in the case of an emergency in the middle of the night, you can get to the hospital, you can get to where you need to go. My husband comes home with 1/8 of a tank, and it drives me crazy because we live about 20 minutes from anything, and I always want to be ready just in case. If you have hurricanes or high winds, being able to cover the windows and having a ready kit. And again, that ready kit is 3 days supply for you, children, pets, anybody who's going to potentially be with you, for water, batteries, shelf-stable food, medications, and knowing what your evacuation plan and where you're going to meet in the case of an emergency. So if you have other people in the home and you exit and you want to find your loved one, you should have a point that you all make access to whenever you get out so that you all know you're okay. And lastly, modifications. These could be costly by skilled, experienced professionals. They could be that you just are going to get an estimate. And I always say get an estimate first, get recommendations from other people that have used them, and get it in writing. You want to shop the reputation, the cost, what the warranty is if something doesn't work, what's their skill level with dealing with this. They may say, oh, we do this all the time. Well, do they really? Because I've seen people have to redo their bathroom by somebody who was supposedly able to do it, and they weren't able to do it appropriately for that person. If you need equipment, there's always loan closets, clubs, nonprofit organizations, and friends and family that may have the equipment that you need. Could be a bath bench, could be a walker, could be a shower chair, could be many things. And many times they're freely available if you just ask. There are ways to help people with specific physical or cognitive needs. Again, there are a lot of people who live with mild dementia alone in the home. We spend time teaching them what strategies to use and how to use it, or we set them up for success. Again, if you're going to get an estimate, get it in writing, but don't pay completely until it's complete and you're fully satisfied. Alternates would be you move in with other people or downsize. You may go to a senior living community or go to a facility that can go all the way to assisted living and long-term care. If you're lucky, maybe you have long-term life insurance, so somebody can come in and help you despite the cost, or you could wait until you need to do it and it's too late or too costly. So in conclusion, I always say strive for the ideal, be ready. It's so much easier to know it's there and you never need it. Don't underestimate something happening. That's when it happens. And it's all of us. It's not just age related. You just never know. Sometimes it may be somebody else has to come to your house. I've had a lot of times we lived in a rancher and we had our family members always came to our house because this was the only accessible house for them. Prepare ahead. Maybe you need to figure out, in the case of an emergency, could you stay on the first floor? Could you move things around or rent a bed or hospital bed and stay on that first floor if need be? Where's your help if you need it? What's your backup? If somebody's your backup, have a second backup just in case. And I hope this was helpful. And I thank you for inviting me.
I think if anyone has any questions, we can use the chat feature, and Luke will be happy to forward those on to Jay for some good answers. Well, I'll jump in there and ask. So Jay, this home fit guide is just packed with good information, and you said it could be downloaded. Is that on the AARP website?
Yeah, I think it's actually on the face page, the front page. It's downloadable as a PDF, and I think you can actually even ask them to mail one to you. I'm not positive about that. We have even on our website an exhaustive list of things way beyond this that you can take and download for a checklist of things to look at in your own home. But nothing compares to having a professional therapist come out, or just even virtually. I've done it a lot virtually, and just basically go through your home room by room, look at what you need or what you may potentially need. And again, people have a lot of progressive disorders. So you're not looking at while you're ambulatory, you're looking at the possibility that maybe you won't be ambulatory, even for just a little while. You want to feel comfortable that you can go home whenever possible, because as therapists, we're not going to let you we're not going to be comfortable with you going home if you're not set up properly. And then you end up in an assisted living facility. And it's not the greatest, no matter where you are. It's just never the same as being home.
So here's a question. I have a cracked sidewalk and need it replaced. Do you have a list of trusted contractors or vetted contractors? think that,
I don't because I live in Maryland.
yeah, I was gonna say that might be a bit
But what
more
I would
local.
do is there's like a neighbor app that you can post and ask neighbors in your community who they recommend and get some references. That would probably be the best, and make sure that it's going to be guaranteed for a certain length of time that you're comfortable with. But that would probably be your best. You want to go local because it would be a lot less expensive. But I would follow the steps that we talked about, is getting that estimate, making sure that you're very confident with these people, that they know what they're doing and they're going to be there to finish the job and do it right.
Yeah, I've often seen postings on our app, which is called Nextdoor, asking for
Yeah,
all
that's
kinds
what
of
it is. Sorry.
contractors.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways, friends on Facebook or whatever, but not just getting somebody who says, oh yeah, I do that, but getting somebody who said, oh yeah, they've done that and they've done it 20 times and they've done it successfully. It's lasted. I'm very happy with it, you know?
I would also ask for references if they're willing to give you some references of people that they've worked with.
Yeah, anybody reputable should be willing to be questioned in the medical field, even as well. I always say, if you don't feel like you can't ask them for a second opinion, then I'm not sure that that's really that great. Because if they're not that comfortable with themselves to say, hey, we don't all know it all, go ahead and get a second opinion, then maybe they're not the right person for you. Or if they get offended, that's even worse.
Sure.
And we had a suggestion too from Linda that call Aging Resources of Douglas County to get some suggestion and some help as well. You know,
Or even in your local group, you know, you have a number of members, you know, maybe you could set up in the newsletter a little help box, you know, somebody's looking for X, you know, referrals for this or that. I don't know, but there's lots of ways if you just ask.
Aging Resources has a wonderful resource guide that lists some companies and providers. So yeah,
When I
working with
did
them
home
would be
care, I
great.
had a spreadsheet for my area, and I had every possible resource for every possible thing, including that podiatrists that come to the house and cover Medicare. I had everything on a spreadsheet. And so if somebody needed something, I could give it to them, and you could develop it really easily. It's just, I don't have it for Colorado, unfortunately. And if I have it, it's not going to be as good as what you can get.
Yeah, we have some local resources here that are really good. I know our viewers probably didn't realize you were coming all the way from Maryland.
Yeah, my business office is located in Washington State too. My
Wow.
partner's over
Wow.
there. But the age of telehealth, man, you could do a lot. I do a lot of therapy over the internet.
well, that still ended up being a really good question with some good discussion around it. Everyone can hear different ways to access resources and get some help with that type of stuff. So. I don't have any other hands raised or any other questions coming through, Jay, so.
Well, thank you so very much sharing all that great information, Jay. I really like the fact that we can download the Home Fit Guide because there was so much that you covered. And Jay's slides will be available when we post the recording of the presentation. So that's two ways to kind of get that information.
Mhm.
So I'd
I'll
like
send
everybody
you the link to my website too if you want that really exhaustive one.
So there's definitely a couple of projects around my home I've got to get jumping on. So I guess I'll have a busy fall. And I don't mean the kind where I'm on the, you know, I wind up on the floor. So yeah, some things to think about for sure. I'd like everybody to remember to mark your calendars for our next meeting on September 2nd at 10 a.m. for, as mentioned, as Tiffany has mentioned, some great insights into mindfulness and meditation. Excuse me, how these can enrich the quality of our lives. And meeting flyers will be sent out with more information and details a few days before the meeting. Remember again that all our meetings are recorded, so if you'd like to listen to Jay's presentation again or have family members or friends benefit from her expertise, just visit our webpage, mydougcoseniorlife.com. It's up there. And all our other presentations are there as well. So if you've missed one or you'd like to hear one again, you're more than welcome to do that. And also, please consider commenting us on our Facebook page. There's the address right there. Or visit us on our YouTube channel for additional information on what we have planned for the next several months. As Tiffany said, we have the rest of our education series, but we also might have some events coming up. There's one coming up in September 21st. We're going to be having tri-show rides. We're working on the details as to where we're going to hold that here in Castle Rock. So that'll be posted as well. So it's a great spot to kind of see what we're up to. Well, we're very glad you joined us today, and we look forward to seeing you again next month. And oh yes, we'll be looking for your poem. So check out the information packet I mentioned and put your thinking cap on, and let's see how creative you can get. So enjoy the rest of your day, and as always, stay healthy and stay connected. Bye for now.